Where does Georgia defensive lineman Jalen Carter land in my latest 2023 NFL mock draft? We'll let you know next on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian, always on the ones and twos. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I am a scout, national scout over at the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And, of course, I got Mr. LSU champion with me, as always, my boy, my brother, Keith Sanchez. You can find him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. Keith, talk to him, baby.
I have to do a mic check first, DP. Make sure I'm good, man, because last episode my mic was not all the way in, man. I sounded a little faded away, so I had to make sure the mic was straight first, man. But what's up, everyone? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man. And like DP says, 2019 national champ. But you know why we're here, right? We're here to bring you championship-level content. And, man, we might have a championship-level mock draft. Yes, we have our guy, man, on the ones and twos. His mock draft is up. You know how we do, man. We do the best pick, the sleeper pick, but also get to talk about the worst pick, the pick that don't make any sense. I'm excited to get in there and let DP which one I disagree with. So, DP, man, let's kick this thing off.
Keith, I'm gonna toss it back to you because just like we did your mock last week, right? You threw me that layup, right? You threw me the alley-oop. Even though I'm 5'5", I can still get up there a little bit. So Keith, I'm gonna throw it to you. What pick stood out the most to you? What was your favorite pick of my mock draft? My mock 7.0.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in the first round, man, and I'm gonna go with maybe not a very popular name, but I think it could lead to some explosive results. And that's Oregon State's tight end Luke Musgrave to the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost said San Diego Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers, man. I think it's just a good fit, right? Like, because Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, these are contested catch guys. They work, the intermediate. They can't take it vertical, but they need somebody in the middle of the field, and for them to be able to dictate things, right? And Luke Musgrave is that guy. He's when you cut on the film, you watch Luke Musgrave, man, he's a vertical threat. He's a guy that has these long strides. When he opens up, you see that he has the ability to separate away from defenders. So I'm thinking with Justin Herbert, and this is a conversation we have to get into Justin Herbert, right? Like, we know this is an all-world talent, but when are you going to start having impactful moments in the playoffs, right? Like, when are we going to have to start worrying about you being an AFC contender? Because as of now, it's Joe Burrow, it's Patrick Mahomes, we throw in Josh Allen, and then it's a bevy of other teams. But Justin Herbert, it's time to take that next step. And I'm wondering if adding a guy like Luke Musgrave, like how I just described him, a vertical guy, can add him, give him another piece, man, to be able to throw the football to. Because if y'all defense is not going to be able to stop him, then we just have to simply outscore teams.
No, I agree with you, man. Like I said, just given that explosive, when you have a quarterback that loves to generate explosive plays, you give him explosive weapons. And then we saw, when guys got hurt last year, Keith, the offense didn't look the same. So just adding more talent to the offense in general will be big, especially for Justin Herbert, Keith. But I would go to the second round for me. And I want to go to the Windy City, Chicago, man. And it just fell. It happened to fall the way that it did with the 54th pick in the second round. The Bears drafting Jamir Gibbs, running back out of Alabama. And Keith, I think understanding similar to what you talk about with Herbert, right? Just giving weapons. We saw what giving weapons to a toolsy quarterback has done for a Jalen Hurts, right? Got all the way to the Super Bowl, Keith. We saw giving weapons to a good quarterback. Not doesn't have the best tools, but a quarterback that needed some help in Tua Tagovailoa. And if he could have stayed away from those concussions, right, protect himself a little bit better, and if he could have stayed healthy, man, they possibly knock out the Bills in the playoffs, Keith. Like, that's just how good Tua and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill they were in 2022. So I think adding a Jamir Gibbs, you got DJ Moore, you got Darnell Mooney, you had Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool, but getting a running back of the caliber of Jamir Gibbs for Justin Fields, Man, a guy that can move into the slot, as we know, a guy that can run the ball inside between the tackles and inside zone, the outside zone, wide zone variation as well. 4.36 in the 40, explosive vertical runner, but a guy that probably has some of the best patient combined with footwork in this class. I love Bijan Robinson, but I don't think anybody dances with the stars the way that Jamir Gibbs does, Keith.
No, I agree, man. This is an extremely talented football player, and you're starting to hear like he's starting to get more and more credit, right? Like that, and this is something I've been preaching, even before we've, been the host of this podcast. I'm like, listen, this is more of a 1 and a 1/8 type situation. This is not a 1 and then a distant 2. And I think people are finally starting to cut the film on and being like, hold on, we have something really special, really dynamic with Jamir Gibbs, and it's different. I think that's the other element to it, right? Like when you compare him and Bijan Robinson, they're different players. But the different is good, right? The different is a positive in the sense of the fact of it's like, man, I could use this guy in so many different ways that this is just a straight up plus. So, man, the Chicago Bears and Jamir Gibbs was a rather interesting pick, man. But coming up next, DP, we get into those worst picks, man. I get to point out what picks we may not have already went through that pick already. So stay tuned to talk about what pick that I possibly do not like the DP put up with this mock draft.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Guys, you've heard me talk about this mobile gaming app, and if you've ever thought that you'd make a good GM, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you think to create a dynasty. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build historic dynasty. And guys, I promise you, you get to do things with Ultimate Football GM that allows you to be responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating players' salaries and terms, as well as navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All of this in a challenging and realistic gaming world. Ultimate Football GM is complete. It's a completely free and playable offline. Play as you go, as you want, and when you want to. Logged On NFL Draft listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. The worst pick of my 2023 mock 7.0 rather. Keith, talk to me. Which pick did you agree with?
Yeah, so I have two picks.
Oh, okay, you're going to double down on me. All right.
I'm doubling down on this, DP. I'm doubling down on it. And one of them is we went through already, and that was the Jamir Gibbs to the Bears. I love the pick, but DP, you know how I feel about Jamir Gibbs.
I know.
Going 54, so I had an issue with that, man. I love the pick. I was like, oh, man, he got my guy going all the way to number 54. So it hurt more than anything, right? Like, I love the play. I love the pick. I was just like, man, at 54. And I know how you feel about the running backs and the value. And, I'm be honest, man. I think I was watching ESPN and I almost gave you a call. Because Louis Riddick and Mina Kimes, they were up there talking about running backs and the value. And I thought of DP, and I'm like, man, I just can't do this, man, because I'm fighting hard for the RB, and I'm fighting hard for the RBs. But, man, that was – I wouldn't say that was the pick I hate, but that was the – I was like, come on.
That's the one that hurt you the most. That's
the one that hurt. Let's say that the pick that hurt. That was the pick that hurt.
That's fair. That's fair.
But the pick that I would say is that I think right mindset, but I don't think right player, a right fit was the Drew Sanders to the Buffalo Bills. To understand the need of the Buffalo Bills needing a linebacker, and obviously with them losing with Terrell Edmonds, I get the Edmonds brothers confused. They lost Terrell Edmonds, I believe. Is it Terrell?
I think it's the other brother. Tremaine, that's right.
Tremaine, yeah, I'm sorry, Tremaine.
I get them mixed up a lot too. I get them mixed up their names. Yeah.
So them losing Tremaine Edmonds and I think the replacement, I understand replacing the linebacker with a linebacker, but I think the utilization is very different. Drew Sanders, I don't necessarily trust him to do some of the same things that I would trust Tremaine Edmonds to do, and I don't think they provide the same type of value. I think they're both good players, but in their own rights, right? It's almost like TJ Watt. Like, he's a linebacker, but you trust him to rush off the edge more than playing the stack backer position. So if I had to pick one, that was the one. I'm like, I get the thinking, right, the thought process, but I don't know if the Buffalo Bills will be able to get what they wanted, or would be able to replace what they lost with just by drafting Drew Sanders.
No. This was a pick. I'm not even mad at you for picking this one, Keith, because this was tough for me too. Because I wanted to go linebacker. I'll tell you the truth. I initially had Jack Campbell here, right, out of Iowa, but I was like, the athletic profile isn't the same. Drew Sanders is a more explosive and better athlete. And I was like, I feel like because he's new to the linebacker, off-ball linebacker position, I looked at him as like a ball of clay for a Sean McDermott to kind of mold in his image. You know what I'm saying? And play him as that kind of middle stack backer, but then walk him up and rush him off the edge, which is something they still need on their defensive line too, is a consistent edge presence opposite a healthy Von Miller. You can kind of get creative with Greg Rousseau as well. So this was a pick, Keith, that, like I said, I'm not even mad at you because I struggled with this one, bro. I really did. I was like, you know what? I really like Drew Sanders for what I've seen on tape of him, and I was like, you can mold him and you can build him, and they need a linebacker, but I was like, I couldn't pull the trigger and give him Jack Campbell just because of the athleticism, and I really like Jack Campbell and what he is as a player, man. Because I'm not gonna lie, not because it's my mock draft, but it was hard to pinpoint.
Kind of because it's your mock draft.
Not because it's my mock draft, but I struggled trying to find a pick that I really didn't agree with or didn't like, and I had to go back to the first round, and it was, even though I think the fit's good, it's just more so first round value, and it's the Baltimore Ravens, me giving the Baltimore Ravens Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC. I'm not as high on Jordan Addison as a lot of people were this entire time, right? And it wasn't just the combine and him running slower and seeing them in person, standing almost literally 2 feet away from him, realizing, man, he's a smaller, slimmer guy, right? And just seeing the things on tape that worry me with him playing outside, it was just like, okay, I don't mind him. I think he fits well with Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Devin Duvernay, but I don't view him as a first-round player, Keith. And it was just like, but the Ravens either go corner or receiver. And for them, I was like, okay, he is one of the better receivers in this class, but the struggle of it all is you don't have a second-round pick because you traded that pick to Chicago for Roquan Smith, which was very, very helpful for your defense. But I was like, man, I'd rather, if you're going to wait for anything, right, I don't want them waiting on the receiver again, Keith. So I had to reach I know some people may not view it as a reach, Keith, but in my personal opinion, I view it as a reach because I don't view Jordan as a first-round player. I think he's a second-round talent. So I feel like it's a reach to grab him in the first round. But at the end of the day, for them, I'd rather them say, you know what, let's go get a good receiver. Let's go in on this. Let's do it. For the first time ever, let's go and get a good receiver in the first round because you don't have a second-round pick. I think they have a pick in the third and the fourth, but I can wait for corner back there. I can we know this is a loaded cornerback group, Keith. So that's kind of where my mindset was. And like I said, there's no shot at Jordan Addison. I just haven't graded him or viewed him as a actual first round prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you went through that because when I seen that, and obviously, we talk draft, right? So I kind of know where you stand with a couple players, and seeing Jordan Addison in that position and then knowing how you feel about Lamar Jackson and that situation, I was surprised to see that player with that pick, right, with that team. And the question I would have with that, right, because that was a questionable pick for me also, was that is he going to be what they need, right? Because, I mean, with Jordan Addison, we like him, we don't love him, right? And you're talking about, I think the Ravens need a true X receiver. Did you make this pick with the thought in mind of Rashad Bateman also,
yeah,
and them complement each other, or because and you know what it is, and Rashad Bateman has barely played, right? So when I think of the Ravens, I don't even think of Rashad Bateman on his receiving core. That's the other part. So and I'm just being honest because he's he hasn't played
he's been hurt
through the injury, and not knocking him, but you don't go through that and be like, okay, this is part of the receiver core because he's still relatively unproven, right? And so that's what I wanted to ask you. If you thought of it to be a complementary piece to what we believe Rashad Bateman could be as a player, then I get it, right? You may have two number 2 wide receivers and you have a solid receiving core moving forward. So I like with that thought process, it's not that bad, DP. It's not that bad. I had to throw my worst picks out there. I had to critique you a little bit, go through it and be like, man,
no. It's just cool.
My guy, let him know,
cool.
It's always
that's where you were going with that Bateman. That's where my mindset was, Keith. I looked at it like, okay, healthy Bateman. I saw the flashes. Why he's been healthy, even though for a short period of time in his first 2 years in the league. Now it's going to year 3 for him. This is a pivotal year. Stay healthy, right? Create that. You want him to have that. If you're gonna start the way you start, you want him to have that Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen was hurt early on, and then he got healthy and had, multiple seasons consecutive of being mostly healthy for the year and not being out for the season like Bateman has, kind of early on in his career. So a healthy Bateman plays that X receiver spot. Like I said, you kind of come out, especially with Todd Monken, 12 personnel, and you have Isaiah Likely with Mark Andrews, right, at the 2 tight end positions with either Devin Duvernay or It's Devin Duvernay or Jordan Addison flanking, right? So I think that's where the thought process was for me, Keith. Just hoping that Rashad Bateman can finally stay healthy, and I think all these weapons together will be the best group of receiving options that Lamar Jackson has ever had in his 5 to 6 year career with the Baltimore Ravens, which is actually very sad to say because he was on a rookie freaking contract.
If he's with the Baltimore Ravens now.
Yeah, that. And when you read the blurb, it's going to say, let's assume he's still a Baltimore Raven in 2023. But yes, I'm with you there. I'm with you there, brother.
Yep, man. So now, man, look, we went through the best, we went through the worst, and like we always do, man, we got to come with the sleeper picks, man. Picks that, if you're not a fan of this team, you should hope this pick doesn't happen because this is probably going to be a great situation, and everybody's going to overlook it at the moment. But this opportunity, as far as player and team coming together, has the chance to be an explosive combination. So coming up next, man, we're picking those sleeper picks from DP's Mock Draft 7.0 with the Draft Network.
It's time to wake the people up, Keith. It is time to talk sleeper picks. What you got for me, big fella?
Man, DP, I'm people going to look at this mock draft and they're going to say, is DP a Seattle Seahawks fan? Right? Because I'm not going to go with one pick. I'm going with the entire draft. These guys walked out of here with Jalen Carter, the number 1 interior defensive lineman. They walked out of here with John Michael Schmitz, the number 1 interior offensive lineman. Then they hit the second round. They get Derek Hall, the edge rusher from Auburn, right, which is a high-level football player with a lot of potential. And then they finish it up in the second round with Marvin Mims, the explosive Oklahoma wide receiver. So you talk about A+. Like they knocked that thing out of the park, addressed every single team need. And this is the type of draft if they hit this, right? If they knock this out of the park, you're talking about the Seattle Seahawks back to the days of they're running the NFC West, potential Legion of Boom, like they're like legit NFC contenders, and you have to worry about them being Super Bowl contenders.
Keith, it was crazy because literally as I'm going through the picks, every time I came, I always look back at their needs and see what they needed, right? They needed defensive line. I was like, you're at 5. The quarterbacks that they're on the board are gone. I don't feel they value Will Levis high enough, to put him at 5 or to take him at 5 if it was reversed and he went to A-Rich, then yes. But then you look at Jalen Carter, and there's any coach that I feel can get the best out of, if you have those character concerns. I think Pete Carroll, right, is one of those guys that, if we know about Marshawn Lynch, then what we know now, some people will be like, oh, I don't know if I like his character. They would feel weird about his character because he's very eccentric and he's very open and everything else, which I love beast mode, but he's not for everybody. So I was like, man, Jalen Carter. Of course, losing Austin Blythe at center, you need to go ahead and refill that position. John Michael Smith is one of the best, if not the best centers in this class. And, like I said, getting down into that second round, and I'm just like, man, okay, Seattle's back up on the board. They need edge. Give me my boy Derek Hall. You know what I mean? It was the best available in my opinion. And then Marvin Mims, just getting another receiver. D. Eskridge, explosive kid, but, has not manufactured and not really turned into what, to anything of relevance for this receiving core. And if they're not going to invest in the tight end position heavily, they need to go ahead and get some more weapons for Geno Smith and whoever's going to be playing quarterback in the next 3-4 years. So, listen, the Seahawks came out with an A+ on this situation. Listen, it'll be rare, though. It'll be rare for Pete Carroll them to go A+ draft classes back to back, because they take some swings, man. They take some swings. But, hey, listen, GM Dame loves the teams, man. GM Dame loves the teams. Keith, I'm gonna go second round. I've kind of lived in the second round outside of the Jordan Addison discussion. Sam Laporta at 49 to the Detroit Lions.
This would be dangerous.
This is like with the offense they already have, right? Sam, we watched tape on Sam together. He can block. He moves like a receiver. I talked about Mark Andrews in the last segment, and that's the comp for me. Is he's very reminiscent of Mark Andrews, a guy that moves like a receiver, runs routes like a receiver, a good athlete. He's physical and strong, good ball skills as well. And I'm just like, man, you think about putting him with Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift, that offensive line, Ben Johnson. I think it's Ben Johnson or whatever, the offensive coordinator that is literally probably going to be a head coach in 2024 after this season. Get one more season as an OC, and then take yourself to an offensive coaching job, or a head coaching job rather. I think just with Jared Goff, this is the year, man. I think this is the Detroit Lions year. You know what I mean? The year of the proud, baby. Get that roar going and go get yourself a playoff spot, right? Go take this division. The Iceman is no longer there. He's there, but he's got all his bags packed, all his stuff. He's just waiting on the U-Haul. He's going to be leaving to go to New York soon. So don't worry about the Iceman that is Aaron Rodgers. You got to go and you got to knock off Justin Fields, and you got to knock off the Minnesota Vikings, who don't look like they're not going to be as strong, I think, especially if they cut Dalvin Cook. I think that's a terrible decision if they do so. But there's talks about that, Keith. So if they lose one of their top 3 players, like on the entire roster, that's kind of wild to me. So I look at it like, all right, there's a real strong chance for Dan Campbell to get his playoff berth and potential playoff victory in the round 1 of the playoffs, man. Let's build this team up. I think Sam Laporta, adding him to this offense is dangerous.
Yeah, no, I like that, man. And going back to the New York Jets, I want to give them or give you, I guess, right, a little credit. These would be 2 good selections, man. They're not sexy positions, but you're talking about interior offensive lineman from Wisconsin, Joe Tippmann, which the Jets need offensive lineman. I think everyone talks about this run game for the New York Jets, right, which was solid in, the Breece Hall situation. But having studied the New York Jets, you have to understand that those runs came in bursts. They came in spurts, right? Like, it wasn't a consistent thing. And I think that comes with an improvement along the offensive line. So I think they're addressing that center position, which is nothing, like I said, it's not a sexy position, but you're able to address that position. Then you think about Aaron Rodgers standing back there, having to deliver the football. You have Joe Tippmann, who's 6'5", 6'6", as a center. I think that's really good for them. And then the second pick you gave them, because they're back-to-back picks, is Trenton Simpson, the linebacker from Clemson. Once again, not a sexy position, but what Trenton Simpson does, man, you're talking about one of the most athletic linebackers, can flow sideline to sideline. The C.J. Mosley played better last year, right? But we know that that's not his game, right? His game is not covering guys, playing in space and stuff like that. So you're talking about a complementary piece along with the guys that they already have on his roster. I think this will help upgrade that defense and, just further solidify them as a good defense and, top 10 defense in the NFL going into the 2023 NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, I really like what I was able to give them, in this draft in general, going Paris Johnson the first, doubling back down the offensive line with Joe Tippmann, right? And then getting Trenton Simpson. Now, just a little disclaimer, I'm assuming one of these picks are traded off to the Green Bay Packers.
If not both of them, yeah.
If not both of them, once you figure out this situation with Aaron Rodgers and the trade compensation, you're not going to give up the 13th pick. So you're more than likely giving up 2 seconds, if not at least one of these seconds will be, a Green Bay Packer selection. So, but as in this exercise, I stuck with, until that trade manufactures, I stuck with those picks with the Jets, and I just wanted to continue to build them up. Because at the end of the day, Keith, getting that explosive playmaker that's a Trenton Simpson who could play safety and play some off-ball backer, he can blitz, he can rush off the edge, just giving Robert Saleh a chess piece of sorts to just have fun with and figure out, hey, man, like, we've seen it with so many different defense coordinators, just having that guy that they game plan just to attack the opposing offenses every week. They use him differently. And I think that's what Trenton Simpson is. He's a chess piece. He's a piece that the quarterback needs to know where he is on the field at all times because his ability to drop off in coverage, right? You want to send overload left and drop him off. He can be that guy that takes it with that quick slant or jumps anything in the flats. But if you want to rush him off the edge, you want to blitz him through the A-gap, you want to drop him off as a safety and blitz a safety, he gives you versatility and creativity as a defensive coordinator. And I just love his overall skill set with his build, his athleticism, 4.43, all that good stuff, man. 235, 240. I think this is a young man that they can do a lot of different things with. Of course, you know, my love for my guy Tippmann, man. You know, a people mover, big physical guy that can help that running lane, especially when you have a running back like a Breece Hall that me and you both know thrives off of giving him a run lane, giving him open lanes to grass and opportunities to win vertically. So I think that's a big piece of it, especially having the Paris Johnson at either left or right tackle, depending on what they do with Mekhi Becton. Now this offensive line just looks a lot better, Keith, especially with having an assassin like Aaron Rodgers in the backfield under center, man. So I think the Jets. If you're a Jets fan and you're not happy with it, you know, beggars can't be choosers, and I can't do nothing for you, man. I can't. I did my best here. You know what I'm saying? I did my best, guys. But and I would throw one other sleeper pick was Jalen Hyatt to me to the Tennessee Titans, man. You know, pairing him up with Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks is the number one receiver for that offense, and getting a guy that is a burner, a guy that you can move around, get them free releases, and then if they keep their carry, they keep that run first mentality. Get those, you know, defense is not going to play too high against them, Keith. You know they're going to roll a safety down to try and stop because, you know, at the end of the day, Ryan Tannehill is a average quarterback.
And I think I mocked Jalen Hyatt to Tennessee too, but if I had to pick one that I was like real skeptical about, I think it is this one too, and not so much of I understand what the ceiling could be, but I think this one has a high, like a low floor also, right? Because I think
like boomer bust.
Like Treylon Burks is so specific in what he does. Then Jalen Hyatt is so specific in what he does. Then you think about they had a guy, Kyle Phillips, right, playing in the slot, you know, and he's specific at what he does. So I wonder if it meshes enough, right? Or like, do these guys almost operate like, will they mesh well, or are they so far apart as far as what they offer that there's no cohesiveness? You know what I'm saying? And it's not able to gel and mesh as far as what they're able to do.
That's a good point. I'll close it out. You know, my final point. That's a good point. I think for me, it's like, okay, let's become. You know, you're gonna run the ball, the hard play action, and everything. You're gonna see cover one or single high, right middle of the field closed with single high safeties. So I think that you should become more of a try and generate those explosive plays, right? Vertically with the Treylon Burks and Jalen Hyatt, but also both of those guys be able to run the deep crossers and the mesh concepts and stuff like that, where you have the horizontal explosive plays in the passing game as well. Or maybe, you know, just a thought, you play Malik Willis and you just give yourself one of those true a big arm quarterback that can truly create those vertical plays down the field, and you just like to see what he can do with the full offseason and with better weapons, you know what I mean, in this offense. So whether it's Tannehill or Malik Willis, you got to create some more vertical opportunities for your offense, unless you're just tanking, and it's like, whatever, we're tanking for Caleb. Collapsing for Caleb, as my guy Ray Garvin, Ray GQ would say, collapsing for Caleb. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but that's our show, guys. You know, we always love to have some fun out here, man. We appreciate y'all thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. You know for what's coming up on Tuesday, right? You know it's going to be Dame's Dudes, a little this or that. So come in and join the conversation with us, man. Tap in with us tomorrow. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. For Keith Sanchez, you can find him on Twitter at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.